RPG gamers are a special kind of person. Somebody really willing to get into the nitty-gritty, get their hands dirty, and, well, gain mastery over what amounts to ultimately useless information about systems and lore and more systems. And did I mention systems? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 things only RPG gamers will understand. Starting off with number 10, it's greatsword users. There's a lot of people who play Souls game. There's people who play solo, people who are jolly cooperators, trolls, and targets. There's spellcasters, there's brainless shield users and endless dodge rollers, gimmick users, bow before dueling types, and then there's greatsword users. Souls games are action RPGs, and, well, if you play them, you know a greatsword guy, or you are a greatsword guy. There's no escaping the lure of a big slab of steel to bonk your enemies with. Now, doesn't just apply to Souls games, of course. You can find them in just about any RPG where you're given the option to use a big F-off sword. The allure of these things is strong. It doesn't actually matter if they're good or if they suck. There's just a certain type of guy who's always going to go for them. They're lucky that great swords are usually pretty strong. They're usually one of the best starting weapons in the Souls series because of their high damage, long reach, and most important thing, ease of use. They basically don't require a strategy. There's no need to carefully create the perfect build. Just dump everything in his strength and start swinging. Cleverness and finesse, not required. Just run up to something and swing away like a damn fool. Maybe you'll die, but the other guy's for sure going down with you. Such is the simple pleasure of the greatsword. Even the guy who's going to use it always seems to die 2 seconds after summoning them because they think having a greatsword equals an instant win button, and even in situations that it doesn't. But at least they're having a good time living their best life as a greatsword user. Who needs skill when you can hit every single thing in sight with one swing? At number 9 is when the boss has a second phase. Boss fights and the tropes around them have become more and more common outside of RPGs, but come on, the big boss battle, it's always going to be associated with the RPG genre first and foremost. If you're a longtime RPG player, you know all too well that feeling. You finally managed to finish what you thought was a hard battle, and you defeated the boss. That's gotta be it. Time to breathe easy. Uh-oh, there's a cutscene. There's light rays coming out of the boss. All your healing items are used up. You barely scraped by to reach this point. Now all you do is watch in vain as the boss gets up and reveals their for real, actual, true form. And instantly that sense of satisfaction evaporates and the second phase starts. All that progress, it's just gone. You thought the fight was over, but it's actually going to take way more of your precious time on this earth. Then you finally kill them, and all the existential dread that immediately welled up disappears more or less, at least until the next boss pops up that's somehow even more of a miserable slog to get through. The two worst moments in a 2 or 3 or however many phase boss this is that initial cutscene, because it's the exact moment you know this whole thing's going to take a lot longer. And then you start to despair like you're actually just making negative progress. Even though you've technically gotten past one form, maybe you nearly beat the first form on pure concentration or even just pure dumb luck. But now you're getting nowhere close. You're regressing in skill, not improving. It's an inevitable consequence of playing these kinds of games, at least for us mere mortals who aren't doing no-hit runs playing on a bongo controller or whatever. At number 8, when guns are worthless. I don't know how aware you are of this, but in the real world, guns are pretty dangerous. They're a lot of fun. Target practice is a sometimes very fulfilling activity. But even though I am competent and even enjoy doing those things, one should have a healthy respect and fear for firearms. There's a reason why we're not all still William Wallacing into each other on big empty fields anymore. Guns have pretty definitively outclassed swords and spears as weapons of war. Don't tell RPG makers that, though, because RPGs, well, the sword is just king, and the gun is a little pea shooter that can't do dick to anything. Take literally any JRPG where you've got a party member who primarily uses guns, and they are, at best, just about equal to a sword, if you're lucky. Like, don't get me wrong, Barrett in Final Fantasy VII. Cold as ice, very cool. It's nice to see somebody have a gun that is not completely useless, but man, it's about the same usefulness as a sword. The gun is his arm, and it's awesome, but it's also, in terms of effectiveness, not actually that awesome. It's just a weapon. Honestly, it's aesthetic. In most games, somebody that punches with their fists is just as strong or stronger than a guy with a gun. Yes, there is a extremely rare RPG where the gun guy's actually good, like the original Wild Arms, but there's dozens of high-profile examples where guns are just straight up useless. Like, okay, Bloodborne. Guns are just used for stunning enemies, not killing them, stunning them. The amount of damage they do it's minor, and the blades do the real work. A shotgun blast to the face is a tickle to these guys, and the real danger is the awkwardly shaped rusty axe. In Persona 5, guns are basically just a free action, and again, they're significantly weaker than anything else. Another recent RPG, Expedition 33, has a similar mechanic with guns being relatively weak, but I mean, it does add at least a layer of strategy. They're mostly for shooting weak points. But don't get me started if, like, an enemy has a gun. They're even more worthless that way. They tickle. I guess that one's less irritating, but still. At number 7, wake up, it's quest time. This one's specifically about Bethesda RPGs, I might add. If you'd spent any time with all of them, you've experienced this at least once. You know what I'm talking about. Some dude sends you off on a quest to do something somewhere, but by the time you're finished, it's night and they've gone to bed. Sure, you could wait around till morning like a chump, but who's got time for that? So instead, you break into their house, bash open the door, and click on them, which almost instantly makes them jerk up out of bed and start conversing with you as if nothing happened. It's a real achievement how they managed to give all those NPCs actual schedules so they go to sleep at night and wander around town and work during the day and stuff. But when stuff like this goes down and you basically wake them up to turn in the quest, it's very silly. I mean, it would also be very annoying if you couldn't do it, but I mean, it's not like I want to get yelled at for waking somebody up after breaking into their house to get to the quest completion spiel. Like, no, I don't want to wait for them to get their coffee and wake up a bit before I get my quest reward. Let's get this over with so I can go back to slapping goblins or whatever. Bethesda games are always riding that line between being immersive and being incredibly goofy just because of how janky they inherently are. And a lot of the time the jank really sticks out because they do manage to be quite immersive otherwise. And, you know, for a long time it was charming, but there comes a point where it's just kind of like, all right, move on to a better engine. Like, we've got Unreal running the new Oblivion remaster, but the Creation engine or the Gamebryo engine, I don't remember if they had changed the name by that point. It's running the Unreal engine. And number 6 is the Holy Trinity. Not talking about the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost here. You have to find our religion-focused second channel, which absolutely exists and makes total sense if you know any of the people involved with this channel. For that, no. Today I'm talking about the defining team when it comes to an MMO and RPG combat in general. In RPG terms, that's the Thief, the Mage, and the Warrior. You got the Thief for damage, you got the Healer for white magic, and you got the Tank to draw aggro and keep mobs focused so the other two don't evaporate when someone looks at them funny. This team-up's essential to how combat encounters are built in MMOs and RPGs in general. It's the most generic form of a balanced team possible. Like, think about it. In every RPG, the first 3 characters you get, tough guy with a lot of HP, and then a damage dealer, and then a white mage of some kind, somebody who can heal. Sometimes I mix things up by making the hero more of a tank, the damage dealer a black mage rather than a thief or something, but there's always going to be a healer of some kind. And well, maybe you don't have that exact combo. Most RPGs, you're going to have a bad time if you neglect to bring the designated healer along for the ride. MMOs are essentially obsessed with the concept. You're always going to get games that rigidly follow that formula, like EverQuest, World of Warcraft, basically every popular MMO ever, and the ones that try to subvert it, like the Guild Wars games. In the MMO space, you're either embracing the Holy Trinity or you try to go against it, and you probably reproduce it in some way, unintentionally. And, well, it's basically just punk music, which is, it's pop music, but it's going against the grain, man. I know somebody's going to get really mad over that statement, but it's completely true. Thief, Mage, and Warrior. Keep your eyes out if you haven't noticed it. You'll notice it. At number 5, instead of getting stronger, you get weaker. One of the counterintuitive things that makes no sense from any kind of logical perspective, but it does come up a lot in RPGs. On a conceptual level, the concept of leveling up just means you're getting stronger. As you kill monsters and get more experience, your stats go up, lets you take on tougher enemies. That's how most RPGs work, and it makes sense. You're constantly getting stronger, numbers get bigger, you do more damage, take less damage, you have more health, you can use better equipment. Vast majority of these things, it's just a linear progression. You get better, and that's that. Some RPGs, not so intuitive, though. And because of the backwards way they implement their systems, the game gets harder as you're supposed to be getting stronger. And I don't mean like the bosses are more challenging. It's not the game matching your power and increasing with more intimidating foes. It's just that you're getting weaker. There are a few games that do this, and sometimes there's a reason for it, like World of Warcraft. That game intentionally skews the balance so that enemies at your level start outclassing you in power before you get too big for your britches, to encourage players to try to get better gear. That makes sense in an MMO where getting gear is the primary thing that you're really doing, especially at high levels. But then you get games like Oblivion where it really does not make sense. A lot of games with enemy scaling run into this problem, especially if they're not that well thought out. The issue with Oblivion is that as you level up, enemies level with you. So in the beginning, you're only ever fighting weak enemies with crap equipment. But as you level up, the enemies start leveling up with you, getting tougher, and they start using better stuff too.
You'll never take me down.
The problem is, if you level up too much, you start running into the issue where every enemy is this wall of health that hits like a truck, where you were killing enemies in a few hits at the start. Now everything takes 5 times longer to kill just because you had the audacity to level your character up. Final Fantasy VIII, that game also works like this. It's easier to avoid combat at all costs and stay low level. Enemies remain incredibly weak. New equipment and spells make you much stronger, so counterintuitively, it's better to avoid all combat in Final Fantasy VIII because leveling up is a liability. I get why these games do it. They put in scaling systems so the game remains challenging for the player, but when poorly implemented, it doesn't really do what they're trying to do. It just makes the game way more annoying. At number 4 is Murder Hobo. Here's a term that goes way back to pen and paper RPGs, but is still applicable today. The concept here is as old as RPGs themselves. You start out with a character who has nothing. They get all their stuff by killing. In early RPG circles, this type of character was looked down upon a bit. Like they weren't really role-playing or engaging with the story mechanics. All they ever wanted to do was kill things and get loot. But now there's entire subgenres dedicated to this sort of thing. Take any random action RPG and your protagonist's probably a murder hobo. You play as a nobody in rags using a wooden stick as a club and slowly build up from there. You may be a mighty paladin using screen-clearing magic to take out hordes of foes, but at heart you're just a murder hobo running around killing everything in sight for that sweet, sweet loot. Take any game with strong emphasis on loot. You're probably a murder hobo. It's simple as that. And number 3 in THACO, where lower numbers are better. THACO. In the world of RPGs, is there anything more confusing and infamous? If you don't know, or like me, always forget no matter how many times people explain it, THACO is short for To Hit Armor Class 0, which sounds like word salad because it is word salad, but it's essentially how armor worked in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition, which in many of the classic D&D RPGs like Baldur's Gate, those systems got implemented pretty much how they sure then. How it works is immaterial, and also I don't think I could properly explain it even if I tried. Yeah, I know it's actually easy, but it's straight up nonsense, okay? The main takeaway here is that when you're using Thaco, heavy armor actually lowers your armor class score. So that means heavy armor is worse, right? Nope. In this one instance, the lower the number is actually better. Going against all preconceived notions of numbers, bigger numbers are always supposed to be better, right? Not here. Not in this one specific instance. At Starbucks, you definitely need the extra numbers for your coffee. Here, not so much. Yes, I'm talking about how much coffee costs. It's crazy. Buy your own coffee and make it yourself. I do that. It's like cents on the dollar. I guess lower number does get better here as well. I don't know. We're talking about numbers and I'm getting confused. So I'm just going to try to finish up explaining Thaco and get the hell out of this point. So it doesn't actually affect how tough you are, which is quite unintuitive, but rather it affects your chance to get hit. Hence the TH in Thaco, which is to hit. Heavier armor makes it harder to hit you in these games, which is the opposite of most modern RPGs, where lighter armor makes you a more elusive target. And also life. I mean, we're not all wearing armor, but certainly the lighter armor you would move around in easier than the heavier armor. D&D dumped Thaco, and so did every RPG that followed it. So it's not a thing anymore. So in a way, I'm kind of just using this for a catch-all for all the confusing, counterintuitive parts of RPGs that don't make any sense. Like weapon scaling in Souls games. Did this make any sense at first? The only reason we accept it now is because everyone uses it, so it's second nature. But I don't know. For some reason, this weapon is just stronger because I have more points in luck. Sure, why not? And number 2 is palette swaps. If you're a longtime RPG player, you're well acquainted with the concept of a palette swap, one of the classic signifiers that you're playing an RPG, just in case you're not sure that you're playing an RPG, I guess. Is this an RPG? Is a question no one has ever asked. Thing about these games is they need a lot of enemies, but especially back in the day, cartridge space limitations and the relatively fast turnarounds of the games meant that they had to cut corners all over the place, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to make a new enemy by not making a new sprite, but rather giving it a different palette. That's not a monkey, it's a moon monkey. Ice doesn't hurt it. Fire does. It's not red, it's blue. RPGs have been using palette swaps since before the days of even the first console RPGs. It's been a common sight in them all the way, literally now. Like some modern games try to mix things up by sticking some extra spikes on an enemy or something instead of just changing their color, but there's still a palette swap at heart. Like in Elden Ring, you can find these big blue guys early on, and later on there's red ones. Don't even get me started with brown, green, and blue. Oh, this enemy's yellow? Oh, man. Also, when they're red, you don't know if you're going to use the ice or if they're just badass. Like, it might mean one of those things. It might mean both of those things. But it's not automatically the one you think it is. And finally, at number 1, everyone dies from sadness. Out of every weird, inexplicable, and inconsistent thing about RPGs, this is probably one of the most unnecessary and annoying. So you're playing a turn-based RPG as you're wont to do. I know what you're like. And bad luck strikes. All the enemies decide to target your main hero guy and kill him in one turn. Okay, no big deal. I'll just revive him like in every other RPG in the world. Oh, wait, no, you can't do that. It's game over. Yeah, the game has some kind of revive mechanic, and if any other character dies, you can just use a Phoenix Down or whatever on them. Revive, but the main guy drops. Oops. That's it. Everyone died from sadness. Yeah, the main character died, and everyone else was mourning them, and that caused them to die, I guess? Not a lot of games do that anymore, but the ones that do stand out, games like Persona 3 especially were a big pain about this because it wasn't just you lose your main guy, because in Persona 3 you have dumbass AI teammates and they're not great. Later releases of the game at least made it so you can directly command your team, but the series has stubbornly refused to get rid of the archaic and annoying mechanic itself. If you lose your main guy, then you completely lose. Persona 5 does it. A few other noteworthy RPGs too, like Yakuza 7. There's no reason why this should be happening. Worst of all, for 90% of the game, it just doesn't matter. And for the small percentage of the time when it does matter, it is the most annoying thing. What value does this mechanic really add other than just being something you do? Nothing I can think of.
No way! Mona's down! No, not good! Mona got knocked out! Someone give her some support! Joker? No! Answer me!
I mean, I can respect sticking to tradition sometimes, and a lot of games that use this mechanic, they're stone cold classics despite having a pointlessly cruel and annoying feature, but I don't think it's adding anything to the experience. I don't see everybody just giving up for no reason. Like, Captain America died at least once, right? Did all the other guys just stop? I don't think they did. I don't know, maybe somebody out there has a perfect counter argument for this, but I'm not seeing it. The party members in these games need to get some initiative. Yes, I get it. The main guy is the leader, the boss to some extent even. And yeah, sometimes guys slack off when the boss isn't around, but usually people go on RPG quests for passion rather than because they're employed. And if the bad guy killed your main guy, you'd more than likely want revenge, honestly. I think I'm getting too far into it now. That's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Do not forget to click the notification button. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter and book me on Cameo at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.